Thank you very much. Yes, this was a collaboration of the kind academics meet the real world. So we worked with KiWi Power to learn from them and all the data that they held. And I guess some of those who ticked the frustrated box earlier, a lot of that frustration is with policy, and our aim is to sort of help policy to live up to their often cited promise of creating a level playing field between supply on the one side and demand on the other. But what they tend to call for is evidence, and we try to provide them with that. Now, I think we haven't had enough pictures yet, so I want to take you to a dark, gloomy cave. This is what Plato, 1,000 years, long before smart grids, thought about what would happen if you had people living in a cave, chained to some chairs, and all they can see is shadows on a wall that are projected from sort of objects that are moved between a fire and themselves. And Plato suggested over time these people will think these shadows are real. And moreover, anybody who could predict what shape might come over the screen next, he'd be really highly regarded by the others. Now, this is a little bit how we as researchers felt until very recently. We've been looking at these demand profiles and then made some leaps of sort of guess what might happen if we wanted to shift this demand. Now, working with KiWi Power allowed us to break those chains and look right around at what's actually happening. What appliances are being used? KiWi Power provided us with fantastic data for that. And better still, they did experiments with their clients where they asked, okay, you've got 10 minutes, reduce your load, and we can look at what actually happens. So we could see what the appliances are doing, and more importantly, their insight into the sort of working practices of their clients help us to understand, okay, if we gave them more time, how could this happen differently? Could they be doing more? Could they prepare for response events? And we sort of modeled on that basis how much more response capacity could become available. And we've published that, and we're making policy recommendations. Initially, we looked at the capacity mechanism, but the headline result really was, if you want to enable a lot more demand response, giving people a little bit more preparation time so they can run a chiller in advance and then have more response capacity, that will help them significantly to increase the response capacity available to the system. In some cases, we looked at it very much on a sector-by-sector basis, because every sector is very different, and only a few we had sort of sufficient data to make robust estimates, and one has to be very careful when scaling up from individual sites to national level. But for instance, for warehouses, we found that, based on this data, there's a potential to have an additional gigawatt of response capacity, significant amounts, purely by how you frame the policy. And that's what we tried to do. Time's up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.